What's up, everyone? Welcome back to school. But don't worry, everything is cool. I'm your host, Jalissa, and of course, I'm here with the boys, Steve and Brandon. Say what's up, you guys.
What's up?
How y'all doing today?
I'm doing pretty good. Tired, pretty tired. Brandon, how you doing?
I'm doing okay. Had a nosebleed this morning. I haven't had a nosebleed since I was a little kid.
What'd you have a nosebleed for?
I don't know.
You just fucking randomly had a nosebleed?
Yeah, you never had a nosebleed?
It's because you're using your what is it called? Your frontal cortex too much?
Really? No.
It's like your ability to have like psychic powers. Like,
Oh, you mean your third eye?
Yeah. Apparently, when you use it, because it's like a muscle, so when you use it too like strongly,
So I've been manifesting the fuck out of shit?
yeah, basically, yeah. You've been manifesting like your fucking heart out, bro.
Makes sense.
I don't think I've ever had a nosebleed.
No?
You never had a nosebleed?
Honestly, I don't think I have either.
No, I don't think I've had one ever.
I think you and me are just built different,
Because I
bro.
feel like I would remember that because I would freak out.
Like you never had nosebleeds?
But that's I'm like I don't think
Not
I've ever
even as
had
a
one.
kid?
No.
You know what I did have? It wasn't like a nosebleed, but my nose bled. You get what I mean? Like, I randomly had a time when I was a little kid where I remember my brother came home from work and he's like, "What's wrong with your face?" I was like, "What?" And I remember I touched it like this, and it was like wet. And my room back in the day, it was like super dark, like because it was on the side of the house. And I looked in the mirror, and right here from like the top of my nose, it was just like bleeding. And I remember what was crazy is that I still have like the red dot like on one of my sides. It came there from this, so I just like my skin just like spontaneously like combusted.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Sound off in the comments, doctors.
Yeah. What's wrong with me?
What was
I
that
remember
about?
I threw up that same day too, and I threw up like a bunch of like black. All my throat was like black. But I mean, that was like I was like 12 years old.
Sound
so.
off in the comments, doctors.
What's wrong with me today?
Yeah.
I always have weird
the
shit
only
like
time
that.
I've ever had like I guess my nose bleeding is when I would blow my nose a lot, but that's it. Like
So you've had a nosebleed then?
I've only, but it's not like a lot. It's just like
Well,
I
it's
don't
not
know.
like gushing. It's just like, you know, there's a little blood out of your nose.
No, it's just like a little stain and that's it.
You never gotten punched in the nose either and like
No.
bled? No? You were never one to get into fights, Julie?
Not really.
You should. You really should. You're missing out,
I
bro.
thought you guys said they were dangerous.
He says that. I always encourage people to
I didn't
fight.
say anything.
He said it that don't fight somebody, but I feel like you should. I feel like everybody needs the experience under their belt.
There are some people that I want to fight,
Yeah, go ahead.
but
Go ahead, bro. And you know what they say? Everything's fair in a fight. So, you know, there's no rules.
is it though?
Yeah.
Is
You
it?
can like pull hair, kick people.
Oh, hair.
Mm-hmm.
God damn.
Everything's
That
fair.
hurts.
There's no ref, right?
Pull hair.
But-
That video I always think about when people are like anything goes is the one where the girl bites the other girl's vagina.
Oh yeah, I was thinking of the same video too.
guys-
I was thinking of the same thing.
Well, can you imagine you got to fight with somebody and some dude, the other dude bit your balls? I'd probably like go feral. I'd be like
I'll like start fucking like
tweaking out.
Well, that's funny because like I
Because wouldn't
remember.
it pop like a grape?
I don't think so. I mean, people always say that, but I don't think balls like your balls can explode. Can they?
Sound off in the comments.
Doctors, any doctors who listen to this podcast, let me know. But for today's podcast, we do have topics. It's not just all ball talk this week. So I wanted to talk about Cholo culture. Speaking of violence, you know, speaking of fighting.
And
No, is that one's controversial? That one didn't land.
I'll cut that part out. Continue.
Really?
No, I'm just kidding.
we're just
well, I mean,
kidding, bro.
You know what? No, cut it out. now.
Take it
You guys
easy.
made it weird.
Take it easy.
You guys made it weird.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, so I want to talk about Cholo culture this week, and the reason why I want to talk about Cholo culture is because as somebody who was born and raised in LA, obviously like I've been surrounded by Cholos like my whole life, and I was surprised to know something kind of mind blowing. So this might blow your mind. So did you know that the term Cholo actually has indigenous origins? And what's crazy is that it actually goes back thousands of years. So I recently found out that scholars argue that the term Cholo derives from the word Cholo-umbians, which is an ancient breed of dogs the Aztecs owned because of their loyalty and the belief that they get that the dogs help them go into the afterlife. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah,
The one
like
from
the
Coco.
bald dogs,
Mhm.
right?
Coco.
Yeah, those type of dogs. Yeah. So when the Spanish first came to the Americas, they implemented a kind of racial caste system, and that saw the Spaniards put at the very top, and then obviously the indigenous people put at the very low. And so when they obviously wanted to implement this agenda, they wanted to do everything they could to kind of dehumanize the indigenous people. And so they started referring to the indigenous people as Cholos, as in to kind of say that their likeness and their value is that of the animals they kind of surrounded themselves by. And I think that's like especially crazy because if you then fast forward to the modern day, Cholo and Cholo culture and Cholo fashion is like something that now people see and embrace and like empowers our community.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's kind of cool that it went from like an insult to like in style. And I feel like it's even more interesting because the more you connect the dots, the more you really see that a lot of like our indigenous roots still show in our modern day culture. Mm-hmm. And I feel like to me, it was just kind of an eye-opening experience. I feel like I could feel like my spirit, like I don't know, just kind of like elevating. Because I like that idea of like just that no matter what we do in modern day culture, there's still kind of like hints and like it's as if there was like a long-lasting legacy that kind of pierces through a lot of what now we're kind of see as just like this like breed of like Mexican American culture, you know. But I wanted to ask you, Julie, were you ever as a kid inspired by the Cholos and the Cholas?
I honestly feel like I didn't really grow up seeing that many Cholos or Cholas as much. At least here. I feel like I saw them more in like, I started seeing, I guess, so it's like gangs, right? So like I saw like gangs more in Mexico than here. Because I feel like I never had that much interaction with them. Or at least I don't really remember. Like,
well, what's weird is that Cholo culture isn't technically like gang culture. It has mixes of gang culture, but Cholo culture is more of kind of its own like representation of like this pushback, this like rebellious phase that first started in the Chicano like wait, I'm getting it mixed up. It started before the Chicano movement, and then the Chicano movement then was like a hybrid, like an offspring kind of the Cholo culture. So, I mean, it is technically like gang culture, but at the time you have to imagine like if you're a Chicano in the 50s and the 60s, the system is basically like all around embedded for you to like be kind of pushed down. You know, it's funny because we're talking about the racial caste system that the Spaniards put in. But if you really like think about it, it's still kind of something that a lot of Mexican Americans struggled with in the 50s and 60s during the civil rights movement. So yeah, I guess you can say Cholo culture has some elements of gang culture, but I wouldn't say they're one and the same, you know? But one of the, just moving on a little bit, I don't know if you've ever heard this. Do you know there's Cholos and Cholas in Japan?
Yeah, I've heard of that.
I was just going to bring that up. I'll see what you guys thought about that.
Yeah, no, this is
because it's always been the argument that are they like culture appropriating the Cholo lifestyle, right? Yeah.
So to prepare myself for this episode, I watched a whole documentary on it, where they interview like a bunch of the Japanese Cholos and Cholas, specifically this one Chola. Because I don't know if you guys knew this, but it isn't like technically new. It started in the 80s. So the story goes that like these Japanese what do you call them? Mechanics? These Japanese mechanics went on a trip to LA and they found out about like the lowriders and they were like, holy shit, like this shit's fucking hard as fuck, you know? Like this shit looks cool. So they went back and they literally built like their own lowriders. And then from that point on was when more and more people kind of became aware of this super like small culture in the United States known as the Chicano culture or Cholo culture. And then that's where you then later see, fast forward to now, and you see bro, it's crazy. I wish I could show everybody who's watching. I wish I could show you the images or like just the videos, because it's literally like if you haven't seen it, you should definitely look it up. It's literally these like super Japanese people wearing like Cholo makeup, and like you see Japanese guys wearing like Cholo fits. So what do you think, Julie? Do you think that's cultural appropriating?
I don't know, because I feel like since it's been there for a good while, I feel like it's now part of them, like in a way they're like history or whatever. Because I don't know, I feel like as much as it does seem, I guess, wrong in a way where it's like they're appropriating just because like they saw it and now they're dressing up like that. I know some of them just say like they just really like the style of it. And I think they're like fully embracing it. I don't think they're making fun of it at all. I feel like they're fully it's just something that they really, really like. I know that sounds wrong to some people. That might sound wrong to like say that, right? To be like, just because they like it doesn't mean they can just dress like that or whatever. Or like there's history there, right? There's also the other side of history, which like you were just mentioning about like with Cholos and like the lifestyle of it and all. But I don't think I'm also, I guess, in a way, seeing it as like I don't think they mean any disrespect to it. I think they just generally just really like it, and I think it just became part of them in a way.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there was kind of like some weird problematic stuff in the documentary. I guess the only point where I thought was like a little weird was there was a part where she's showing her wardrobe, right? The main like a Japanese Chicana girl, who's in Japan. She's showing her wardrobe, and one of her wardrobe is literally like a prison shirt, like as in to say, like these fools are like are like criminals, but they bring it up in the documentary itself, and the interviewer is like, some people would see this and they feel like this is kind of offensive, because you're kind of giving into the worst stereotypes that they don't really like.
Yeah.
And she apologizes for it. She's like, oh, like, I don't try to do that. Like, I'm trying to do everything with respect and grace. And then she gives her backstory as to why she feels like this culture kind of resonates with her. You know what it was? She was going into it that in Japan, she feels like a lot of the fashion trends and a lot of the style that women have in Japan is very cute and very submissive. And for her, she's always felt like people thought she was weird. And so she wanted to rebel against that. And she looked into like a lot of the Latinas and Chicanas who were in like LA, and she felt like that's such like a powerful image of like rebellious, because she educated herself on like the civil rights movement and like where it comes from. And she's like, to me, like that's just so like I want to be badass like them, and like that's what inspires me to kind of want to dress up like them. And to me, I was like, I don't know, it's like it was kind of like cool. Like, I'm not gonna lie, it's kind of cool
because I feel like it's, in a way, it's more of like an inspiration, because it's to her, it's kind of like it makes her feel powerful in like what she's dressing. Like, yeah, of course, like I get the part where it could be offensive, like the prison shirt or whatever, and I can see and I understand like why it would be that way. But it's like how we also say like sometimes we can like share the culture in a way, and I think she still even like she learned herself the history, right? She still learned about it, like she educated herself on that side. It wasn't like she was just like totally like not in the knowing of like why they dress like that. And like I think it's also in a way powerful that she was using it to kind of like, it shows you how, I guess, in a way it's inspirational of like, because they actually use it to be rebellious. And like she's using it in her own way, in a way, in the same way that they're doing it, right? So I don't know, I feel like I don't see it as a wrong way, because I feel like, especially because she educated herself and like the background of it and like why they do that. At least that's just me.
Yeah. Well, because they asked in the documentary, they went to CSUN, and they asked this professor in Chicano studies, and she was actually offended. She talked about how like the reason why she feels like it's offensive is because she feels like it's not right that on the other side of the world there's these people who are dressing up in this style, because they don't deal with the consequences of having to rep that kind of fashion. When you wear that stuff here in LA, obviously you become then like a target, because like we said, the Chicano and Cholo and gang culture, they're not the same, but they overlap a lot. And because of that, when you wear that here, it's kind of a source of like boldness. Like it goes back to the Pachucos, how the Pachucos wore like the zoot suits in order to show like this very strong boldness of like, no, like I want you to see me, And so she was arguing that she takes offense to it because she feels like they will never understand that strife, and they will never feel like they honestly honor those clothes. But she said that she at least sees the beauty in the fact that they kind of found a meaning to it on their own. Over there it means something different. To them, they're going against the status quo, and that's why she feels like, okay, like I understand that aspect of it. But that's the counter argument, right?
Yeah. But I mean, I feel like I agree to the last point of like, I like that they did find, I guess, in a way their own, but it still stands for the whole rebellious part. Like in the end, I mean, that's what she said, right? And I feel like personally for me, I feel like I don't find it offense because of the fact that she also learned about the culture. And I'm just like, and to the point of like, they won't, I guess, get the consequences that we do, but I'm kind of like, in a way, it's like, I don't know. I don't know how to explain it, but in my head, it sounds nice that they don't, because it's kind of like, why would we want them to face those consequences like us, right? And I don't know, I think that's just how I see it. It's just like, I'm glad, it's, to me, it just seems like I'm glad that she can dress like that and have no consequences to it. Because I think that's how we would want to live. Like, that's how we would want to be. We would want to be without like someone criticizing us for the way that we dress. And I'm glad that she has that, you know? And I'm glad, again, that like she knows the background of it. Like, and that's why to me it seemed beautiful, because I'm like, she's living the life that I guess a lot of us kind of wish we kind of had, of like just being free to dress however we want, you know? And I'm sure she still does, because how she said she's going against like status quo, right? But in a different way. So like, I think she's still having some, but not to the level I guess that we have.
No, yeah, you're spitting. You're spitting.
Yeah, I don't know.
I feel like I can agree to that. Brian, how do you feel? Because you're Asian and you're also a Chicano.
I think it's interesting. I don't know. I guess it's a little tricky because I feel like I agree to. I mean, like I said, I think it's cool that they got the message and they're educated about it. Like they got the message of like it's empowering. You know, I think it's cool that she found that, or she sees cholas as like a symbol of empowerment for women. I think that's cool. You know what I mean? But I think the professor has a good point. You know what I mean? Because I think that's also like. It's a big aspect of it, because like the way I kind of see it is like, like correct me if I'm wrong, because if I'm wrong, oof.
Yeah, go ahead.
I saw recently that I learned that for black people with cornrows, right, it used to mean something because they used to use it to like for maps, right? Yeah. So like stuff like that, right? Like let's say somebody was doing cornrows and they're like, oh, you know, and they had their own little backstory. There's like a piece of it that's deeply rooted in like history. That's like a piece that they can never fully like, I guess, articulate or represent. So I get why someone would find it offensive. So I guess maybe my one point of criticism would be like, I think it's good to be like inspired by it. Like if they could be like, take some aspects of it, but make it their own in some way while still like, honoring it and being educated themselves. I think that would be cool. Yeah. Like, I'm not over here like casting aspersions, being like, oh, this woman, she sucks. You know what I mean? But I think there's probably a healthy balance somewhere there, you know?
Well, because it really ties into what I've started off presenting with, that Cholo apparently comes from Cholo eats quintly, right? As in like it was kind of as an insult from the Spaniards to the indigenous people as like, you're a fucking animal. Right. Yeah. And then to see people on the other side of the world be like, oh, I'm a cholo, I'm a chola. You know, it kind of like you said, the cornrows thing, like they used it. You said the map. I didn't heard that, but I heard that they also use it to hide like food and rice. Right. And so when you tie it all together, it is kind of like, yeah, it's cool. But there is an element of it of where like, but it has like a deep rooted like history. Yeah. And like, I'm not mad. I personally, like you, I can kind of agree that it's like, it's cool that that we get some kind of representation, right? But I remember when this first came out, because I remember it first went viral when I was, I think, like in high school. And I remember my friend, because they're from Boyle Heights, and like Boyle Heights has a very strong like Chicano pride. And I remember he was upset. He's like, it's like, bro, well, I don't get why people think it's so cool. Like people rep other cultures and they get upset with it, but we're the ones who are always like, no, it's cool, we'll let it slide. And I guess I understood that, and that's why I keep kind of going back to the counter argument, because I think if people are upset, I feel like they are valid in that too. Like, and I know it's very easy to be like, come on, bro, don't be such a fucking like stick in the mud. And I'm not. I sort of me personally, I don't see it that offensively. But I understand why people would feel that way. Yeah,
and I was gonna say too. I was like, I get her point, and I'm not saying like it's wrong. I'm just like, I understand her point, but again, like that's why I kept saying like, to me, I'm fine with it, but again, it's just like I understand like if she finds it offensive, like I'm not here to argue with her and be like, no, like you should be like how you said, you should be chill about it. I'm kind of like, no, like you're valid in what you're saying, and like. And I understand, because I guess to some people they also lived through it, right? I didn't. I don't. Yeah. I'm not living through like those consequences either now. I know other people are, or like whoever kind of grew up in those predominantly like neighborhoods. They understand. I don't as much, because of how I said, like I wasn't surrounded, or I didn't grow up with it. So that's why to me, like I guess my opinion is different, because I just didn't grow up with that.
You didn't
and
experience
like,
it, right?
I didn't experience it. So that's why, like, to me, my own opinion is different. Would be different than to somebody else who has like learned about it, knows about it a lot more. And to me, I'm kind of like, I don't really know much about it, you know?
Yeah. Well, because it was funny enough in the documentary, another thing that they pointed out was that she had like tattoos too on the style. And I did like her point. She said that in America, a lot of people get like Japanese like characters and stuff. It's like, I just like the way that the like old English, you know, the Chicano styles. Yeah. I just like the way it looks. And so she has a tattoo across her collar that says, what is it? It's what did it say? It's loca. It literally says it's loca. Oh, it's chica loca. So it says it right here on her collar, like big, like chica loca. And she's like, she brings up that point. It's like in the America, people get like Japanese tattoos all the time, and they're not Japanese. So I feel like I'm right to just get something like that. And I'm like, yeah. She brought up, there's this, so famously right now, who's like kind of like pushing the movement in Japan for like the Cholo look, is this like artist called Sad Girl. And they interview her in the documentary. And she brings up a lot of points like that, where she's like, I don't feel like I'm doing anything offensive because I look to the Americas and a lot of people wear their Japanese graphic tees and they get their Japanese tattoos. And, you know, if they can do that, then what stops me from doing this? But also, that sounds, you know, like that sounds already kind of like
a generalization.
Yeah, already like I get how you get mad.
Yeah.
But you have to understand, if you watch the documentary, when they're interviewing her, they're in her house and her entire house is completely like Chicano. Like she has like La Virgen, she has like a bunch of like Mexican like ornaments. Like she's basically like Mexican. She's like as deep into the culture as one can get. She's dressed completely like a Chicana, and then she literally has pictures of like all the icons. Her entire house, it's a 2-story house, up, down. There's no place you can go in her house where there isn't some sort of Chicano representation. And I guess that to me, it's not that I'm upset, but I'm like, whoa, you know, isn't that just like mind blowing?
Yeah.
Like to be in a completely different part of the world and to identify so heavily with like this, like, because I would still consider, I mean, we're the minority, you know, to identify with the minority. I don't know, just like existentially, that kind of makes me think like, whoa, like there must be something she went through in life that where she was like, no, these people, I feel like I resonate so much with their strife. And I don't know, that's beautiful. That's beautiful in my head. But moving on from Japan. Well, don't go ahead.
Because I was just going to say, so then is it wrong then? Or like,
I don't know.
To like embrace a culture? Like,
yeah, because I mean,
like
how would you feel?
Not talking about like just like, I guess the Chicano and all the lifestyle or like how it is, right? But to say like if it's another culture, right? And you're kind of like, I'm just really, I mean, not saying like that she identifies as a Chicana, or does she? Or she's still like, I'm Japanese.
She never says anything like that.
Okay. So like to just embrace just a culture, is it kind of like should we gatekeep then? Like, or like I don't know. I think that's what I'm kind of thinking of. Like, should we just like always just keep it to ourselves, like not let other people kind of have the lifestyle?
I don't know. Like, you know how Rosalia, it's Rosalia, right?
Yeah.
She's the one who says she feels like she's Latina, even though she's from Spain. She says that, right?
Yeah.
And everybody's kind of very upset about that. How come it's a little different when a Japanese person does it? Like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like,
well, because that's what I was thinking too. I low-key was thinking the same thing.
Well, because you know how we
talked. Like,
yeah, go ahead.
I don't know. I'm trying to process everything still.
I don't know. I feel like it's kind of a slippery slope. Yeah. Like I feel like you can honor it, you can take influence from it, you can resonate with, you know, the cause and the message. But I think there's an aspect of it that they're just never gonna understand. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like that I don't think they realize is integral to the culture. Like, right? Like, because I feel like when you brought up zoot suits and you brought up the cholo look, right? It's more than just like an aesthetic. Yeah. It's like it means something. Yeah. You know, it's not just like, oh, we think this looks cool. You know, like the work pants, right? It was them taking pride in the fact that they had a lot of working class jobs and stuff like that. So it like there's meaning behind that. Or like when you talked about cholo, right? I didn't know that's basically like slang for dog, like they're being called dogs. That's crazy. You know what I mean? But they don't. I'm not saying Japanese people don't have the stripes. They do. You know what I mean? But I don't know. I think it's a little.
Well, because let me paint you an example, right? Let's say there was a white guy living here in America, and he completely white, Like he lives in the South. He has family members who are white. He has no mix in his family whatsoever. But he identifies very heavily with Japanese culture. And so he gets Japanese tattoos, and he completely decorates his house with Japanese paintings, and he only ever watches like anime, and he even tries to learn Japanese. Is that offensive the same way that it would be offensive?
But hear me out on that though. I think it's a little different in that sense, because like in the scenario you're painting, right, or in the people that I know who are a little like that, when they engage with Japanese culture, it's like anime, like an art. You know what I mean? I wouldn't say Cholo is that same vein. I get you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It'd be like if they were like, "Oh, I'm a samurai," or maybe I don't know, but like that's a real thing. Whoa. No stuff that's like, I don't know. You know what I mean? Like,
well, because the other thing that I was thinking about, right, going back to the Rosalia thing, right, and that's why I asked, like, are they themselves still like, are they like in Japan? Are they identifying themselves as Chicano? Because for Rosalia, like she identifies herself as Latina, like. Like that's a little, I don't know. I think that's different because like themselves, they're still like they're Japanese, but they're just wearing like
I get
our
you
stuff, right?
Yeah.
But her like, yeah, she says like she legit says that she feels Latina, and then she kind of identifies in being Latina, but she's not Latina, right?
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes sense, but like I think that's how I see it in my head, and that's why it's more problematic for Rosalia because she's generally saying that she's Latina.
Yeah.
And then they're not saying that they're Chicanos or all that stuff. I mean, I get it in the Cholo aspect, I guess, because they're saying that they're Cholos or whatever, and that the word Cholo has its own history, and I think that's the part where it's a little more problematic, I guess, because it's like, again, how you mentioned, like there's history within even that word, right? So I don't know. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
No.
I guess what you're trying to kind of say is like it's one thing to dress like you're Latino, but it's another thing to be like, no, I am Latino.
Yeah.
Even though you're born in like Asia, I guess.
Yeah.
Right. That's kind of what you're getting at.
I guess I think that like I definitely see the both sides, but I'm kind of leaning a little more towards the professor. Because like I said, I think there's a big aspect of it that you can't really ignore, that it does run deep like that.
Yeah.
And it is kind of a wound for some people, you know? So I feel like...
Yeah. And that part I understand.
Yeah.
Like that part I get it. I get why it is, and because there is history, right? So I get that. I get that part. Yeah.
No, yeah, I agree. I guess I just wish they would take inspiration from it and kind of make it
like
their
a
own.
hybrid.
Maybe make it their own a little bit. Kind of just say, maybe we'll do this, but I think kind of maybe taking a, because like, I don't know. Imagine like a group of people who participate in that culture coming here and doing that. I feel like, I don't know if that would go well, like I just don't
bro, I've ran into Cholos here in LA. Like they would not think that shit's cool.
Yeah.
They would not let that shit slide.
So I don't know. I don't know. I guess it's a little above my pay grade to say this.
Yeah.
But I
because I get it, because there's a lot of pride within just that, right, of being a Cholo, right? There's a lot that goes into it, right? And I understand if it were to happen here, why it would be very, very problematic. What was the other thing?
I guess the for me, I'm like, I see it as becoming like they're not like, because they're educated. But I'm sure there's people who aren't going to be, and who are going to treat it like an aesthetic, and not what it actually is, which isn't an aesthetic, So
and I can understand that there are people who are gonna kind of abuse it or like what is it, mistreat it or whatever it is. Like they won't take it as much as like how what was her name, the one that they interviewed, like. They won't have the same, I guess, inspiration or like background to it. There's just some who just generally just like it and they don't know anything about it. So like I understand that there's the other side that like they don't really care. They just like it, you know.
Like, and
go ahead. Well,
I was just gonna say to kind of go back though a little bit where she brings up like some people get like Japanese or Chinese or tattoos and stuff like that. I think that's a good point. But I don't think that's enough of a point to be like, they do it, therefore I can do it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I also think it's too much of a generalization. Like some other people do this. Other people might appropriate. I will appropriate as well. It's kind of like, well, I don't know if that's the proper.
Other people kill.
Because like, well, because the way I see it, if it's like, if they were like super into like like, I don't know, like Selena, or like, I don't know, they like these certain bands, or they like Chavo del Ocho, or they like, you know, aspects of like media,
Chalino,
you know, aspects of media, culture, music, and stuff like that. I feel like that doesn't really wave any red flags, because I'm like, oh, they're really like, they love the culture. Yeah. But the fact that they kind of hone in on maybe Cholo, where I don't know, it's hard for me to articulate, but I just I don't see it as quite the same, you know?
Yeah.
Well, because this is especially why I wanted to bring it up in the podcast, because I think there was a lot of elements, because it started with me just doing research on the Cholo, because when I found out, obviously, the whole about how Cholo basically means dog, like that was like a mind-blowing thing to me. Mainly because I also thought it was funny about how like Cholos are like, what's up, dog? Like, you know, like it's kind of funny. But I also thought it was kind of mind-blowing because in the video where it was really educating me on a lot of these things, she was talking about Gwen Stefani and a bunch of these celebrities here in America who like wear Chola like wear, and they don't at all acknowledge that it comes from Chicano. And then Sad Girl, all of her music videos are inspired like by Chicanas. So her music videos are all her like wearing like the big oversized pants and the Dickies and the hat, and like she's singing in the way that a lot of like Chicanos make music. And so it brings up that question of like, it's weird because she's very popular, and you would think that if somebody's popular because they rep the Chicano style, maybe it should be somebody who actually has, you know, like roots in that history.
That's true. I mean, but I don't know. I guess I still kind of, I didn't watch the documentary though, just so I can't say, because I know you're bringing this up.
It's really good.
I feel like the way that sounds is like, it kind of sounds like other people do it. So why is it bad that I do it? And again, I just don't think that's a good enough reasoning, because I feel like I've definitely seen people criticize Gwen Stefani. I haven't seen it be as big, but I've seen people do it. Like, not as big as when people criticize like Aquafina, right? Yeah, because she gets criticized a lot. Or I don't know. There's a lot of celebrities who get criticized for doing shit like that.
For stealing, for culture vulture. For
culture, I mean, Elvis, he gets because he's the king of something he didn't really create. You know what I mean? Or, you know, shit like that. So I don't know. I feel like, I think it's true. I think it's problematic when like a person who isn't of the culture that they're kind of appropriating or getting famous of, like when they kind of reap the benefits from that, and people who are from it don't. I think that's problematic. But like I said, again, just because somebody gets away with it I don't think that's like, well, they did it, so why can't I do it? You know, I don't think that's fair enough, because that's like that Papa John's like logic, you know.
What do you mean that Papa John's?
What is the Papa John?
Because isn't that why he got in trouble? Because he said Papa John. I mean, because Papa John said something.
Oh, yeah. Well, he said the N-word. Yeah.
No, but in the context of it, he was like, he said, I think it was at a board meeting. I could be wrong. It was something like he said the KFC guy had slaves, and I just say
no, he's right.
Yeah, he's right. So it's kind of like, it seems like that logic of like, well, they did worse, so why am I in trouble? You know, it kind of sounds like that, but I don't know. Maybe I'm going off topic.
No. You're spitting, yeah. But I guess I'll move on a little bit, because there is one more Cholo subculture in the world that I found. And I found, and this one? Yeah. And this one's really cool, because this one is a hybrid. Like, this one is a hybrid of the Cholo. And I know you've probably heard about it, Julie. It's called the Cholo-umbians. Like Colombians? Cholo-umbians. Have you heard of them?
No.
Bro, they're fucking cool. Like, if you could ever imagine what a cyberpunk Cholo would look like, it's basically them. So they come from Monterrey in Mexico. So they basically have, it's like Cholo culture, like times 5. So their baggy pants are even baggier. Their shirts are even more oversized. And they wear like graphics that are like super, like they spray painted. Like their style is completely like original. Like, so it's super colorful, and they originate from Monterrey, and they, weirdly enough, they identify more with Colombia than they do being from Mexico, which is like what is like kind of a mind fuck to me, because it's like the Cholo culture, you can equate that to the United States, and then to move that to Monterrey, and then add Colombian. Weirdly enough, it's like, why do I not feel as upset about it? You know? Because then we were talking about how, like... But I think it's because they're obviously Mexican. So, and, like, Chicano and Cholo culture comes from, like, obviously that aspect of Mexican descendants. Yeah. So I feel like that's why it's not that upsetting. But you never heard of this?
No, I don't think I've heard of it.
Well, I only found out because there's this big movie that's on them that you can check out now on Netflix. Shout out to the boys, support the community. It's called Ya No Estoy Aquí.
I think I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
I think that's the one that I always told you to watch.
Yeah, that's why. Okay. I'm like, she's like telling me she doesn't know.
Okay.
You're the one who told me about it. No, because when you were
saying it, I was like, is it the same thing? I was like, nah, probably not. But yeah. That's the one where I told you where like they dance and they look like they're dancing like the Aztecs.
Yes. And you see how it ties back to there's so many hints of our indigenous roots in modern day culture.
Because the music is like cumbias, and that's also very Colombian. But for me, I learned cumbias as like where my parents are from, like because they really love dancing there. And so, like, and I remember I told you, I was like, bro, you need to watch this movie because, like, it's good. And I like the fact that when they have, like, the dance scenes, they genuinely look like they're dancing like the Aztecs. Especially because, like, since, they're like, their shirts are big, so it, like, flies around. Yeah. And so, like, it, like, when they spin, it's still, like, flying around. That's so cool. It just looks like, kind of like feathers in a way, where it's just, like, it's moving around, like, their clothes is moving. You know how, like, when you have big clothes, it just, like, moves around and, like, it waves? So I thought it was really cool, and I remember I told Stevie, I was like, bro, you should watch it because it's really good.
That's what I'm telling you. Cholo culture is like embedded with like indigenous roots. So that was just kind of my whole spiel on just that. There's not as much to say about the Cholo-umbians.
So is it wrong?
Yeah, no, because they're that shit is going strong, and it's like around there, and it's crazy because it's so exclusive. You should see their. I would show you, but the audience won't see, so I feel like it's only fair.
It'll be in the reel.
It's only fair that I don't show you either. But it's crazy because they have like crazy hairstyles too. Like they have this like
The guy has like a cut like here, and then he has like long like stuff like here. I don't know how the back
looks very native.
It looks very like native, but like he has basically like the
Edgar cut.
And then he has like side bangs like this, and they just go really. It's like a mullet, but it's like it's
like an inverse mullet. Yeah. It's literally like imagine turning a mullet around.
Yeah,
it's basically what
like
he's
this,
rocking.
And then basically like how my bangs are like.
Interesting,
bro. No, they're cool. I would want to have one of them on the podcast. Oh my god, they look cool. That's what I'm saying. Like, should I feel bad? Because I was like I was low key feeling like a certain way about the Japanese like stealing the Chicano culture, but then. When the Mexicans in Monterrey were doing it,
because it's like
I don't know. I feel like that's a little different, though.
Right?
You know?
Right.
I feel like
okay.
Is it because it's within the culture?
Well, because isn't Cholo culture acknowledging their roots in Mexico, and then this is just people from Mexico, right? So it's kind of like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's kind of like, I don't know. Is this a good analogy? If like someone from Africa was taking part in African American culture. Would you really be like, hey man, you know, it's like, I don't know. I feel like that's fair.
No, yeah.
But I don't know. I feel like
so
we got to ask a Colombian person too.
So they are different then. Well, we have to ask a Colombian.
I'm sure there's like stuff to criticize, but I don't think it's in the same level as the Japanese one.
I actually do know a Colombian person. Maybe I should call them right now, live on the show. No, they won't answer. They won't answer.
So what do you think?
Yeah, I have to fucking like 20 minutes.
And that's even if they know like about it.
That's why I have to explain like 20 minutes of lore.
Re-explain it.
Yeah, but moving on to my next topic. I just wanted to talk a little bit about, because since I was obviously talking about Mexico, I felt like talking about where my family comes from, because I don't think we've ever really shared that on the show. So our family comes from Puebla, specifically. Should I name the town? Do you think that's problematic?
Why would it be bad?
I don't know. Well, because I don't know. Well, they come from the state of Puebla, and famously, the state of Puebla has a volcano, which is Mt.Popo. I'm not gonna say the full name because people are gonna get mad at me. I'm not gonna pronounce it right. But unless Julie, you know how to say it?
Popocatépetl.
Yeah,
I hope I said that right.
I don't know. It sounded pretty good.
It sounded right.
I hope I said that right.
Sounded like a bar. Say it again.
Popocatépetl.
You already know? No, I don't know. I lost it.
It's about a rap.
Yeah, I was gonna spit another bar, but the reason I wanted to bring it up was because it recently erupted. I don't know if you guys saw the footage.
Yeah.
And it was pretty fucking gnarly. Is that like I said, my family's from there, and I've never seen an eruption as fucking violent as that. So I wanted to give my respect to everybody who's out there. I saw today as I was looking this up that there's evacuations. I hope you guys are doing okay. my love is to you guys. Since I remember being a little kid going to Mexico, looking at the volcano, thinking that shit looks sick as fuck. I hope everybody out there is doing safe and doing well. But it got me in the mood to talk about some stories, some folklore, I guess you could say, that my dad always kind of told us about. So did you know that this isn't even like me trying to be like, did you know? But have you ever heard of the rumor that volcanoes are like gas stations for aliens?
I have not heard of this.
So my dad told me, and the reason I even brought it up was because when the volcano eruption happened, I saw people in the comments mentioning this, and this is something my dad always told me since I was younger, that the volcano Popo is like a famous stop for a lot of aliens, and that my dad said that as he was growing up, he would always see things flying in and out of the volcano. And you could actually ask people from Puebla, and it's a common thing. People talk about all the time that volcano is famously known for seeing UFOs flying in or around it or going inside the volcano. And that's just to say that there's just a lot of like weird like folk tales like that. I remember my mom told us about this like Yeti. Do you remember that one? This like white Yeti.
No. They got Yetis in Mexico?
Yeah. Bro, Mexico's a trip, bro. Mexico's a trip. I feel like there's a lot of like spiritual energy there, but that's
it's a very supernatural.
Yeah. And my mom told me that one time she saw like a Yeti like running around because if I could name the town, you guys could Google search this. I'm not gonna name it, just I don't know, it just feels kind of weird. But you could see that it's literally right next to the volcano. And you'll see that because of that, there's supposedly like a lot of like weird occurrences there. Mom said that she famously woke up like at 6 a.m. because she heard the dogs like chirping away. And then and then she opened the curtain and she saw like this big like white Yeti, and that it like just ran away, and she was like, whoa, like am I daydreaming? But my mom swears she saw it.
Man, I want to see something like that.
Bro, you should go, because do you remember one time we saw aliens there too? Well, you didn't see
I didn't see them.
But I saw it.
I didn't see them.
I swear to God, I did see aliens.
I was more like, well, because we were in the car and it was New Year's, and I was in the back of the car and they were like, they saw, I think my older brother saw something. And I was kind of like, bro, I just want to go inside. So I never got out. So I never saw them. But they said that they did.
What'd you see?
The reliable proof is that everybody in my family saw it except Julie.
Yeah.
So it sucks. The only other person who's on this podcast. So it kind of makes me seem outnumbered. But I swear everybody else saw it. So the story goes is that it was New Year's. We had just come back from a New Year's party. So it was probably like around 1 or 2 a.m. And my family famously has the house at the edge of the corner of the town. So when you look out, it's just fields and fields for miles. Like it's just all dark. And then my brother, he like pointed at something. He's like, "What's that?" And over the fields, we saw these like 5 like red lights like lined up, like just completely floating over the like fields. And my dad pulled out his flashlight and he shined it. And when he shined it, they flew up and they went away. And to me, I have very few UFO stories, but this is one of the few that I legitimately saw with my own 2 eyes. And I was a little boy, and yes, my imagination can run wild, but my parents and my older brother saw it, and my older brother at least had to be like 19 or something. So I for sure saw what I saw. And then on a more realistic level, just my final story of like talking about Mt.Popo. I keep calling it Mt.Popo. It's called
He's a volcano.
He's a volcano. I don't know why I keep calling it Mt.Popo. Anyways, so my dad told me that a lot of the people who live even closer to the volcano kind of see it as a god. And for those of you who know a lot of like Mexican lore, he is technically a god. It's the story of like Mexican and Romeo and Juliet. I guess you could call him Mexican Romeo. And it is supposed to be that like they were these giants and like the volcano is kind of his corpse, right? That's what the story goes. There's actually a lot of interpretations.
There's a whole bunch of stories, because there's even the one, I think there's 3 or 4 volcanoes that's around there, and they even tell you about like the couples and like what happened, because there's another volcano that's kind of like chipped at the top. Oh yeah, and they always talk about how like the girlfriend got jealous or something like that, so she threw a rock at him, and that's why he's chipped. So there's like a whole story to it. And I always thought it was nice because they are like, I mean, they're pretty far from each other, but they're in view, like they're in sight. So I always thought the stories were nice when my mom would tell them. And I'm like, oh. Yeah. Because even the inspiration is the one for like the guy who's carrying the woman. I don't know.
That's what I'm talking about. Yeah, Mexican Romeo and Juliet. That's what people call it. Not to disrespect anybody, but that's what a lot of people call it. The simple way to explain it is that way. But yeah, weird enough, if you aren't Mexican, there's a lot of like, the deeper you go on the south of Mexico, there's a lot more like folklore and a lot of like beliefs that the land there is a lot more mythological and a lot more like has a lot of like weird vibes. And as somebody who's been there, it does kind of give me that sensation. And not in a like negative way, just more of like, I feel like there is something up. But then again, I don't know. You know,
like spirits and stuff.
Yeah. I've always felt more scared like down there.
You feel supernatural energy down there.
Yeah, I feel like, and I feel like I'm pretty in touch with my spirit side. So I feel like the vibes are off.
Yeah, but it's cool because I remember because the Popocatépetl is like legit like in view. So there's times when it's like super dark, and like in Mexico you can see the stars. At least like where we go, like you can see the stars and everything. So sometimes when it's really, really dark, you can sometimes see the lava like coming out of it. So like you can generally see like lava there, like on like the tipping point of it, you can see it just like bright. Cause I remember one time we would go up our house and Papi would be like, oh, like look, like you can see the lava, and I remember I looked at it and I was like, damn, you for real can.
Yeah.
Like,
you
can see
glowing,
the top. It's like glowing up there.
Interesting.
It's not erupting, but it's just like glowing.
Yeah.
And I'm like, damn, that's crazy.
Yeah, you know what's crazy is that there was even like a huge earthquake there like a few years back, and it affected like our community. But I sidetracked a little bit. I was talking about the people who live around the volcano. So my dad told me that they take it very seriously. They see the volcano as a god. So there was this famous story that a long time ago, I think the volcano actually erupted. This isn't like folklore. This is like a real story and real accounts that my dad heard because he obviously grew up around there. That when the volcano erupted, that they were evacuating like a lot of the towns that are around there because the lava was coming, and that a lot of the older folks were refusing to go because they felt like as though this volcano gave us life, and if it wants to take it away, then it will. And I have no say. So there was like this famous incident where like a lot of the younger people literally carried like on their back the older people out of the town because they refused to leave. And I kind of wanted to end it on that story because I just wanted to kind of emphasize on how real that shit is. Like people take it to heart. Like I know it sounds like folklore, and to some people might sound like, oh, it's fairy tales. But people take it seriously, man. It's very much like a source of life over there because obviously the ice melts of the volcano. That's how people get their fresh water. So I just wanted to end it there because I knew Brandon was going to talk about some supernatural shit.
Mexicans are loyal.
That's
Ride
cool.
or die, bro.
That's true.
Ride
Mexican men don't cheat either. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
Sure.
Right?
That's a good takeaway from
right? Yeah, the biggest takeaway, Mexican men don't cheat.
Okay.
I guess kind of because you kind of set me up with the aliens thing, right? I don't know. I guess is trying something new here. Just kind of, I don't know. So, have you guys ever heard of the Varginha Incident?
No.
Also known as Brazilian Roswell.
No, I've never heard of that.
Well, you know what Roswell, New Mexico is, right?
Yeah.
You've heard of that? The Roswell crash?
Really? Have you heard of that?
Well, most people have, so I'm not gonna. I'm not gonna explain.
Can I try to explain?
Yeah, go ahead.
Roswell. So it was basically like this famous incident. I think in the 1960s, it was a UFO crash in New Mexico, right?
Yeah.
And famously, like it blew up. All the newspapers were talking about it, like, oh shit, like it's an alien. And the government was like at first like laughing, like, haha, yeah, sure, it's an alien. And then all of a sudden, they basically like became very serious and they didn't want to fuck around anymore. And then they basically just said it was a weather balloon, and they never talked about it again. And people thought it was very suspicious. People consider it as being the most infamous kind of like UFO incident in the United States because of like people swear it's real.
Where do you hear this one, bro?
Right.
Well, all right, stick with me. It's kind of lore intensive, but I don't know. I've never heard of this. All right, so to start our tale, right, we have to set up the fact that the North American Aerospace Defense Command, or NORAD, on January 13th in 1996, had informed the Brazilian Air Defense that an object was entering Earth's atmosphere over Brazil. So at the time, I think Brazil or their air defense had asked NORAD like what it was, and they didn't really have a response because they're like, we can't really identify what it is. So not long after that, a small town in Brazil called Varginha, I think that's how you pronounce it. They speak Portuguese, right?
Varginha. Okay.
It's a city of agriculture. It's mostly just farmland. It's not really like it's not like
Mexico.
Yeah, it's not really Los Angeles, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
So, in that city, there's these two farmers named Eurico and Oralina de Freitas, I think. They're two farmers, right? And they had heard their cows going like batshit crazy. So the cows are running around in the field, and they come outside and they see a submarine-shaped object. They said it looked kind of like a cigar, and ironic they chose cigar because they said it was smoking, like there was smoke all over it, and that it was hovering over their farm, and it looked like it was having trouble staying in the air. So they were staring at it for like a couple hours until they watched it disappear over like a ridge. And simultaneously, as it disappeared over ridge, someone else saw this. This guy's name is Carlos de Souza. He had heard like some rumblings or like just like a really weird noise. And when he turned around, he had seen the same craft. And he described it the same way as like smoking, struggling to stay in the air. Same shape, the size about of a bus, they said. So this guy is interesting because he used to be a pilot. So when he's looking at this, he said he thought it was like maybe like a small weird plane. But as he was watching it, it disappeared over some mountains in like a nosedive. And coincidentally, he was on a road that seemed to lead to where it had crashed. So the guy shows up thinking it's like a plane, and he's like, oh my God, like I gotta help these pilots, you know, because he's a pilot himself. And when he shows up, he sees that there's this weird like metal crash site. He describes it as like the metal was like tinfoil almost. So he said that he picked up the tinfoil supposedly, and that it was as light as a feather. But the craft was made out of this, and that he even crumpled it up. But when he let it go to drop, it like floated down, like it was so light. And that after he let it go, it returned to its original shape. So he was kind of like, that was weird. But he was like, well, let me go help these pilots. But what was stopping him is that he described this like horrible smell. And like, what's interesting about that is they all talk about this horrible smell, right? They say that it smelled like ammonia, sulfur. Someone said it's like skunk spray times 1,000. The guy said that when he was in the crash site that it was so unbearable he had to cover his face, but he was almost blinded because it was stinging his eyes. It was so bad. But he was determined to like find these pilots, right? But as he was about to get to the crash site, the military rolls up. And they're like, get the fuck out of here. They're pointing rifles at him. And they're like, get the fuck out of here. So he's like, all right, like, I'll get out of here. Not that long after, he goes to like a coffee shop. And he's supposedly visited by the men in black who are like, you didn't see what you just saw. We know exactly where you live. We know what your name is. We know what your family is.
I'm in shock.
That's the men in black themselves. No,
I'm invested, bro. I'm invested. That's why. My bad.
So the men in black. He doesn't say it's the men in black. Yeah. He describes them as well-dressed figures. I think he said it was like two guys, who show up and they're like, "You didn't see what you just saw. We know who you are. We know where your family is. We know where you live. It's not gonna be good for you if you tell anybody what you just saw." And apparently this guy stayed quiet for like 25 years. So whatever they said to him worked.
What the fuck?
Yeah.
25 years?
Yeah. So
they traumatized his ass.
Right? Yeah. So a few hours later, residents in the city reported seeing strange creatures. And the people were calling the authorities, saying that they were seeing this weird creature, which they described as brown with oily skin, small hands, and 3 fingers. I know, a little racist, right? I'd argue the most notorious of the sightings, I guess maybe the most popular that you might see in media if you were to look up the Varginha incident, the image that might come up is the testimony of 3 young women who apparently stumbled upon the creature that everybody was talking about in an alleyway, crouched down. They said it had 3 ridges or bumps on its head, huge red eyes, 3 fingers. It was oily, and they said the same thing. It smelled unbearably bad. Like it smelled so bad that they were like crying, basically. I think 2 of the girls took off, and one of them had stayed because she said that the creature was communicating with her, but it wasn't talking. She said that she could feel its thoughts and that the creature was asking for help. It said that it was scared and that it was hurt. Obviously, she was scared, and the girls said that they had seen the devil. They told their mom. So they came back to the spot, and there was nothing there, obviously, but the smell had stayed. So the mom, when she comes back, she says that the smell stayed in her nose for days, that it was basically torture because, like, she could not get the smell out. And they were outside, you know? So it's like, damn, it must have been a strong smell. But in the part that they came back at, they found, like, a footprint, which was, like, that also had the same thing. 3 toes. Let me take a breath because I'm talking a lot.
No, you're good. You're good.
Are you following the story, though?
Yeah. I totally am, yeah.
All right, so simultaneously, right, not that long after, there's military policemen are patrolling the streets because obviously they're getting a bunch of calls. People are saying they're seeing weird creatures, so people are patrolling. Their names are Eric Lopes and Marco Chares, I think that's his name. Supposedly, when they were patrolling, they saw a small animal or a creature or a person run across the road, and they got out and caught it. The guy who caught it was Marco Chares. They took it to the hospital, but supposedly it died in the hospital. Now, what's interesting about these two guys is the guy who caught it, Marco Chares, 2 weeks later, he died.
Damn, they got his ass.
No, but hear this out. So he was supposedly in perfect health. He went to the doctors, and the doctors could not tell what was wrong with him. They said that when he died, he was ordered to be buried immediately because they said it was a health and safety hazard to other people. And they, from what I read or the research I did, they didn't do an autopsy because the doctor said it was unnecessary. But they made his blood tests like available, and his blood contained 8% unknown toxic substances. So it's like, I guess it's kind of implied that whatever was on the alien got on him and it like killed him. But the story continues actually. So I guess while this is running rampant, more people are calling about this creature running around town, and the fire department responds because they're like, I mean, you know, there's a creature. I didn't say that, but I'm guessing they think it's like a rabid dog or some shit like that. But apparently when the fire department pulls up, there's like a little crowd watching this creature in like an embankment, I think. I don't know what you call it. And that the creature was making like a bee-like buzzing sound. And apparently the firemen were scared shitless. They were like, what the fuck is that? Mm-hmm. You know? But
rightfully so.
They eventually caught it though, apparently, with a net. But what's interesting is also one of the firemen died a few weeks later. So interesting, right? Not that long after they had caught it, a military truck arrives. And with the military personnel, they arrive with 2 black body bags. One of them, they report, was not moving at all. And the other one was squirming as if something was in it.
What the fuck?
Yeah.
Straight from like a sci-fi movie?
I know, that already sounds crazy, right? So the story continues. Apparently, the military rolls up to the hospital. And they're basically taking over the hospital. They shut down, I think, something like the west wing of the hospital. They're bringing these body bags in, and they take over I don't know what you call it, the x-ray room? Radiology? That's what you call it?
Yeah.
Apparently, doctors, scientists, and military personnel were all in the room, and they ordered the doctors to take, x-rays of the body bags. But immediately after the x-rays were taken, the military apparently took all film. After this, the hospital had to be closed for days. I think somebody said like 2 weeks because of the ammonia smell, and that they tried sanitation. They tried everything on the books to get the smell out, but they just couldn't. They had to just let it air out. And I think they said 50 doctors and staff were put under non-disclosure agreements for a training exercise, and threatened a bunch of people with prison if they were to expose or just talk about what happened. So the story continues, of course.
Oh shit, for real?
Yeah, and not too much longer, but I guess it gets a little interesting, right? So supposedly a military personnel who came out who talked about, like, I guess the vibe that was on the base. This part is a little unconfirmed because this part comes from a documentary. I think it's called, I forgot. I think it's called First Contact or something like that. Mm-hmm. Or The Moment of Contact. I think that's what it's called. So apparently this guy who's in the military, and he comes out years later, and he says that at the base there was like a weird vibe, and that there was a lot of new people that he hadn't recognized. And eventually he says that the U.S. military shows up, and that they were ordered to basically just let the U.S. do whatever the fuck they wanted. So apparently a military plane shows up, they load these into the military plane, and then the U.S. takes off. So basically he's saying that like immediately after they got it, the U.S. shows up, takes it with them. So that's kind of where the story ends a little bit. But there's some interesting aspects to the characters.
Okay. Let me know. I'm invested.
So
I'm invested.
Remember the 3 girls I had said?
Yeah.
So apparently, the mom, she said that a few days after the incident, 2 foreigners showed up on her doorstep. Essentially Americans. Okay. She says they were well dressed, wearing ties and everything, men in black, and that they offered her a briefcase full of hundreds of thousands of dollars. And they said, you can take this money and leave the country, but you have to get your 3 girls to retract their statements. And then she was like, no. Like, I don't want my girls portrayed as liars. Like, no, fuck no. And she said that she was starting to get scared because they were so pushy. But eventually they relented and just left. So that's a little interesting.
What the fuck?
Right? So you might be thinking about the guy who died, the guy who caught the creature. So if you remember, I introduced that he had a partner, Eric Lopes. And I also said that there was a documentary being done on this. So the documentary people, they went to find this guy to ask him. And there's a clip where they find him, and he pulls a gun on the documentary people. And he tells them to get the fuck out, that he's not answering questions, that he doesn't want to hear about it. So the only guy who, like, saw the alien, he pulled a gun on people trying to ask him about it. Yeah. So that's kind of where the story ends. I mean, there's more that I'll go into, but thoughts? Thoughts?
Okay. Let me suspend.
Just deconstruct. Let
me. Yeah. Okay. I need. Okay. So let me say everything is true, right? Let me say it's an alien. Okay. Mm-hmm. What do you do in that situation? Like, you know how they came to offer you $100,000? Would you do the same thing?
I don't know, because the lady was like, I don't want them to be seen as like liars and like.
Well, you know what's weird is that, like, if I suspend, what is it called? Suspension of disbelief.
Yeah.
If I really do that, and I think about it, I was like, okay, I really don't think it's an alien. If anything, and this is gonna make me sound fucking crazy, I feel like I could see it being like an experiment, like
gone wrong.
Yeah, that they did like on a creature, and that like whatever it was, like. Tried to escape.
Well, when they described it, I think there was another guy who said, I forget what, I didn't write it down because it wasn't super integral to the story. But I think another military personnel described seeing one of the aliens in boxes. I'm saying aliens because that's kind of what's implied.
Yeah.
But he didn't say aliens. He said he thought he was looking at a burned man. But he obviously didn't feel that way. But he said that the vibe was that's what they kind of wanted him to say.
I keep getting chills, bro.
He said that it looked like a burned man, but it was like freaky. I guess what for me the interesting part is that everybody kind of having the same kind of like it's fucking reeked, bro. Like you know, like it was really bad. But
what do you think that's about?
Well, I guess. In a way, to like what Stevie said, I guess maybe it is that they were maybe experimenting on someone. Maybe. I don't know, because now I'm thinking of that too.
Right.
But I think in general, like if they were, no matter what, like if people saw that, they probably would be like, I want that to be hush hush because it's
What
like,
about the craft though? A lot of people, I think, I didn't write down everybody, but more than the people I mentioned reported seeing this craft.
Yeah.
But that's what I'm saying is I feel like I could see it being that they were experimenting on something that was simultaneously like intelligent while also being
like Stitch?
Yeah. And then like it stole the spacecraft it stole isn't a UFO. It's just an advanced like craft they had at the facility. And if it was like experimented on since it was born, it would have had the knowledge to like be like, I know what this spacecraft is. The thing
that's also crazy to me is the fact that like the girl was like, he was communicating to me through like,
my mind.
Yeah.
But I'm telling you, it's a fucking like experiment.
But I guess the part about it that I guess is a little interesting, I guess that pushes people towards aliens is the part where the NORAD says that it was coming from outside of space. that it was entering Earth's atmosphere and about to hit Brazil, and then they formed Brazil. So that's why I'm like, oh well,
true.
you know what I mean?
There.
The pilot, right? He says that he found it weird because he is a pilot, that he said the smoke. He thought the smoke was gonna be black because he assumed it was a fire, but it wasn't black. He just said it was white smoke. So to him, it wasn't consistent with a fire. Small detail, but he said he saw windows on the side of the ship or the craft, and that it had a large crack in the middle. The part where he mentions the material is a little interesting. The video that I got most of this information from, he gives the counter arguments, which I'll go into in a bit. But to add to this guy's credibility, when they show his part in the documentary, he starts breaking down, like crying. Damn. Like he starts like bawling his eyes out. He's like, no, like something happened here, you know? And it's I guess to the untrained eye, it's pretty convincing. Or his testimony seems more convincing. The fact that he's like crying really hard. He's saying something like, oh my God, like something bad happened here. Like it's right here. This is where I saw it, you know? And he's like crying, and he's almost shaking because he's like, you could tell something's up with him. Mm-hmm. Like, I guess he's scared, right?
Yeah. I mean,
that and the fact that the partner pulled a gun on the documentary crew and told them to fuck off, which, I mean, if they threaten your life, I mean, maybe they'll do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, especially like if he's just scared in general, like, bro, like I'm not trying to risk my own life to like tell you guys about something. Like,
no, yeah. Do you guys want to hear the counter arguments or the explanation?
Yeah.
Or what people say is military cover up.
Yeah, well, because I totally, if this is all true, there has to be an answer for it, unless it's just fucking aliens.
Okay, so to start off with, I guess the counter argument of debunking it, right? Because I think that's fair. You got to know that stuff too. There's no evidence this ever occurred outside of witness testimony. Witness testimony, but everything on both sides is witness testimony. There's really nothing that says anything otherwise than witness testimony. And obviously that's a pretty weak form of evidence. It's just eyewitness testimony.
I saw it, I swear.
You know, some of the people's accounts don't line up. So the farmers who originally saw it, they had actually said that they had seen it a week earlier than the guy who went to the craft and found it. And people are like, oh, it happened 25 years ago. Maybe they just fucked up, you know? But that's important to know, right?
Yeah.
A lot of people will say like, oh, well, the people who say that, they have nothing to gain. Apparently, the 3 girls don't do interviews unless they get paid. So people bring that up as like a case, right?
I'm losing hope. I'm losing hope, yeah.
An explanation, but there's one of them that kind of makes me go so bear with me until then.
Okay.
So you know the guy who died, Marco Chavez?
Yeah.
I want maybe it was Marco Chavez, but I don't know. I might have fucked up with my handwriting, but
his handwriting just sloppy.
Yeah. But supposedly people say that he wasn't in good health. People say that the explanation for his death was that he had a cyst that got infected. So that's that explanation to go on to that. But as for the hospital one, that's the one where I was kind of like, So apparently there's something about that the military said that what people saw was a couple of people who had dwarfism, so little people. So and that the military was helping them go to the hospital because one of them was in labor and about to give birth. And I don't know about you guys, but that explanation seemed pretty weak to me. Which was
that one's a miss.
That one's a miss. Where they didn't see that. It was just a couple with dwarfism that they saw.
I don't know.
Interesting, right? Well, because a lot of people say like, well, then why did they barricade the entire city? Why would the military barricade the entire city for that? So that one was a little weird. Mm-hmm. The guy who makes the video also brings into know. He's not really trying to convince you otherwise. He just presents both facts, of
course,
which I admire.
Appreciate. Yeah.
He shows like a snippet of the military talking about this. I forgot the guy's the ranking. He might have been the general, just I guess the head honcho. It's like a weird vibe. So I think one of the reporters asked the guy like, so you're not gonna like explain this or like talk about it? And the military guy gets mad. He's like, I have nothing to prove. Like, why do I got to talk about this? This is dumb. And he's like trying to storm out. People are like, oh, he could be frustrated because maybe it's just generally nothing. And he's mad that he has to answer that. But I'll agree. It is a little bit of a weird vibe. And then as for because there's a famous image, right, of the alien in the alleyway where it's like crouched down. There's a guy who's, I guess, semi-famous in the community as like the local homeless guy.
Okay.
They call
everybody has those.
They call him Mudino, which means little mute, I guess in Portuguese. And the military tried to explain that what the girl saw was him. They said that on that day it was kind of rainy, so the brown oily thing, he was just covered in mud. And apparently this guy has mental health issues and all that stuff. So he might have been acting in a way that was scary to the girls. They've come out to say that that's dumb because they're like, they know the guy. So they're like, why would we think that was him? But there's this picture of the side by side of like the description of what the alien looks like and of what this guy looks like. And I guess you can see the point they're trying to make because the pictures look similar. And they also go on to add that, I lost my train of thought. But needless to say, that's kind of their explanation for that, which I don't know. I found interesting. Oh, and I remembered. So the guy lives at the spot where they saw the alien, which is another thing. So they're like, I mean, he lives there. He kind of matches the description. That's what you saw. I don't know. An overall interesting case for me, just because it's like there's a lot, you know?
Yeah.
So I don't know.
I've never heard about this.
Me neither.
Yeah, I've never heard about it.
And it's like so in detail. Like,
I think it's also like it wasn't a lot of another thing people add is that in their testimonies nobody's described aliens. Nobody used in their terminology that it was aliens. They just all said creature. And I think at the time that this happens, there was a chupacabra craze. So they were more implying that it was a chupacabra. But other people, outsiders who were saying like, oh, there's a craft and all that stuff, they put two and two together and said maybe what you saw was an alien. So I guess that they use that as a way to corroborate the story because they didn't come out and say aliens, or they didn't really even come out to say chupacabra. They kind of just said creature. So it's like, I don't know, interesting to me.
Yeah, no, I think it's interesting because it makes me think about one of those things where I think a lot of unexplained, unusual things always happen kind of in the United States. Oh my God. It's the government. They're taking over my body. I was going to say too much. They were trying to make me lose my train of thought.
They hit you with the sneeze gun?
Mm-hmm. No, but I was going to say, I think a lot of unusual and unexplained things like just naturally occur in the entire world. And I think where I find like the most fascinating is when there's accounts, like there's real world accounts of like a story that is unexplained. And because it makes me think that there has to be at least one case that's real.
Yeah.
And I like that analogy of like, because you know how you're saying the government like covered it up?
Yeah.
There's this analogy where people are like, oh yeah, the government covered up and did suspicious things in the 60s and the 70s and the 80s and in the 90s and in the 2000s. But they're not like that anymore, you know? And it seems like a weird point to kind of make. But it throughout your entire story, I was just thinking about like, yeah, it's so easy to look at these people and be like, they're all fucking crazy or they're seeing things that they don't. Yeah. But at the same time, if the government really wanted to cover it up, they would make you think that, you know? And and I like your idea of like not trying to point to either side of like, no, this is true or no, this is fake. Yeah. But I just want to like, no matter what stories we kind of engage with, always understand that the government is really good at making you think a certain way. Yeah. And usually if you feel like a gut instinct with something, just take a second and look at the other side. Because I'm telling you, you might just be a casualty of manipulation, you know?
I guess what's interesting to me is there's that running joke that aliens always land in the United States. So for me to find a case of one that happens in Brazil, or I guess any other report, I'm sure it happens. Yeah. You just don't often hear that. Yeah. You know what I mean? But it's interesting that the in the story, the canon of this tale, that the United States military immediately shows up and takes it all. Pretty interesting stuff. I don't know. There's a video game that they made almost immediately after this.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you can watch the gameplay. I watched it and it's not. I mean, you can see that it's based on it, but it's not the same as the story. But I don't know. Interesting stuff, man. I don't know.
Bro.
Gives me chills.
I'm scared.
Yeah, it gives me
I'm
chills.
always scared about these.
I don't know. It kind of makes me sad that they added that the alien was scared and like afraid and asking for help, and then they like kidnapped it and put it in a body bag.
Well, because I'm telling you, like, if I want to really like open my mind, not have a closed mind about it, I think the more obvious answer is that it's some Stitch type shit where it's like clearly something the government has. Well, I don't think it's alien, but I think it is abnormal that they maybe experimented on, trying to get out and be like, oh, you know, like, save me, like, I'm conscious, like, the government has this whole
did
fucking
this to me.
these whole fucking like facilities where they create monsters. Because I mean, if you're the fucking government, why wouldn't you do that? You know, it's crazy because I feel like I sound insane right now, but but I'm just saying, like, I think about shit like this all the time where the government had the internet long before the internet became public access to everybody, and right now we have ChatGPT, which means that the government not only probably has had ChatGPT AI, but they've had it for a long time and they have a better, more sophisticated version of it. So you're telling me with all those advancements in technology, the fact that we can clone stuff, they wouldn't at all have experimented with gene splicing. Yeah, I sound crazy. I totally sound crazy. Yeah. But like, I'm just saying.
But I mean,
like,
even with like the history of what the government has done before, right? Of like experimenting on other people with like drugs and what it does to your body and all that. I don't think you would pull it past that they wouldn't do something like that.
Well, I guess where I was going with this was no, I'm not dissuading what you guys are saying. I guess to kind of, I guess refocus it a little bit was like, I know what you think about it now, but because I guess what kind of sparked the idea is I remember you telling me about the alien gas stations and stuff like that. So I don't know. What do you guys think? You guys know what I think. So what are your opinions? Do you guys think something like that has or could happen?
I feel like you did a really good job of convincing me that aliens have never visited the planet. Oh, really? But I think I firmly believe that. But in a way, it's even more fascinating because now I'm interested in because I think a lot of these events are real. You can call me crazy or you can call me whatever, but I think there are definitely some that aren't real, but some of these incidents happened. And I just don't think it's as easy as, oh, it's probably aliens. No, it was probably something even fucking like crazier and darker. Like it was something that like the government has been like creating like these type of like experiments and has been like advancing in technologies in ways where every now and then they fuck up, you know, incompetent. They're still human, and something gets out and they're like, you know, they send the Men in Black or they send these secret agents. It's like, bro, how can you not? I feel like I almost think it's crazier to not believe that the government doesn't do things in secrecy. Like you said, you bring up, there's real experiments. There's the tungsten experiments. There's that famous experiment where they gave a lot of like African Americans like I think, what was it, HIV long, or what was it? No, it wasn't HIV, but they gave them like a sexually transmitted disease, even though they had the cure, just because they wanted to see what the disease would affect them with when they got older and how it would like deteriorate the body. Like shit like that, at least to me, it makes me always kind of question and be like, I don't know. To me, it's not a far-fetched to think that the government would easily like cover something up, and then you look into it and you're like, oh, this is obviously fake. It's like, well, yeah, because that's exactly what they would think. Yeah. And I'm not saying that every single conspiracy theory is real. Like I'm not saying like I think the moon landing happened. Like I think that is true. But I do think you should always look at these things with an open mind. Doesn't mean fucking put your tinfoil hat on and live in the forest, you know?
No, yeah, I mean, with things like these, I mean, there's some that are obvious hoaxes. I guess I'm kind of like, I'm inclined to believe that the truth lies between them somewhere. I think something happened, but I also don't think nothing happened. You know what I mean? I feel like the position is either all this crazy shit happened or nothing happened at all. And I feel like the truth is somewhere in between. So maybe they saw something. I don't know if it's as extravagant or as detailed as it was like that, but I also don't know if it's like, oh my gosh, they just thought it was a chupacabra. These dumb, like, you know, people, you know? Because then I'm like, that sounds a little racist, man. Like, like you're trying to present them like they're just idiots. They probably saw something, you know? Yeah. But I don't know.
It was probably something. We just don't know what it was.
Yeah. Because we've talked about it in the past too. Like the government has had a lot of like weird operations. Like there was that famous operation where they try to learn how to mind control people. This is real. You guys can look this up. Anybody listening or watching. They try to learn how to mind control people. All they did is just fucking give people just LSD, like, and it made them just like dumb. But they tried, you know, and I like that analogy of if you were the government, right? Put yourself in their shoes. Would you not? What is it? Leave every stone unturned. What's the analogy?
No, you got it right. Yeah.
Right? Would you not make sure, like, yo, yeah, astral projection, that shit sounds dumb and fake.
But what if it's not?
No one's going to look at us if we go 50 feet underground because we're the government. So why not just see? You know, why not just see if it's true or not? And why not get the best minds in the world to kind of work on this? Yeah. You know, like, really think about it. If you think about it, the government is unregulated. Yeah, there's like, oh, you know, the world is the United Nations have like war crimes and stuff you couldn't do. But they're not going to see it if you go to fucking New Mexico, create a bunker that's 100 feet underground, and then run all these experiments. I mean, why wouldn't you want to know, right? If you had that power. There's those interviews where they ask Obama and like Bill Clinton about aliens, and they're always like, yeah.
See with those,
like they're always like
with those though. I want to add, I'm not so convinced with those when the Obamas or ex presidents are like, oh, I don't know, I've seen aliens, because I think in that case, I think it's like a marketing scheme. I think because the presidents of the fucking United States, they're not gonna get interviewed without approved questions. You're kidding yourself. If their publicists, all the people, they see the questions that they're gonna be asked. You know what I mean? And to me, people eat up aliens because, I mean, it's fun, you know? Like, people love to hear about that and to think about it and speculate. I'm not trying to be like, oh, you're lame and dumb. I agree. It's fun to speculate. Yeah. So I think it's one of those things where it's like they do it to kind of seem like a cool president. Like, oh, I'm a cool principal. Like, I'm cool. It's like
PR.
Like, yeah, it seems like that where it's like, I didn't wipe out a small town in the Middle East. But aliens though, you know, it kind of reminds me of that where it's like, I didn't do all those war crimes, but there are some aliens. You know,
you're probably right. Yeah. Totally.
But I agree with your point. It's just that one thing. Whenever people are like, "Oh my gosh, Obama said this," I'm like, "Yeah, I feel like that's more like, you know, go look over here."
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. But yeah,
I feel that way with anything. I can never trust the government. You know what's funny? I was coming home from work once, and I was literally like, there was nothing special about it, but I was just walking to the house, and I was just thinking like, does anybody genuinely trust the government? Which sounds like such a big question, but I'm like, in modern day, does anybody really trust the government? Jude, do you trust the government? No. Does anybody really trust them?
White people do.
They scare me.
Do they?
I'm scared of them.
White people trust the government, no?
I don't think so. I feel like they also live in fear with it.
I'm really like, logically, how could you ever with all the history?
That's why they That's why they kiss their ass, bro. No, I'm just kidding. I don't know.
I mean, I don't know. I guess when I say white people kiss the government or like trust the government is when they're like, oh my gosh, like I agree. I'm not to get political, but I agree. You can criticize Democrat officials and Republican officials, but I feel like people who there's outliers, but generally speaking, on the Democratic side, there's criticism, a lot more criticism, and I think more research criticism of like Biden and stuff like that. Where I feel like on the other side, there's a lot more like to the you know, like when Trump's.
I don't know if I agree.
When Trump's like. I don't know. I really disagree with that though.
I think there's statistics that prove that people who often like go to higher education do support democratic and liberal ideas. But I feel like people who kiss the ass of Republicans are usually people who are just the opposite. They're uneducated and they're kind of like.
No, that's why though. But I feel.
But I wouldn't equate that to like every white person.
I mean, I don't know. I feel like that's their main demographic. And I feel like when you have people who are in the KKK and who are simulating Nazi marches, who are supporting you, that's kind of an interesting demographic to have in your audience. You know, that's just my take. I'm sorry, I get it. I shouldn't overgeneralize, but that's just my 2 cents on the thing. But not to get too political, because this was just about aliens.
Aliens is always political, bro.
No, that's true. It definitely is.
Because like, what would we do if aliens actually showed up? I wouldn't believe it. I'd be like, nah, that's fake.
I don't know.
Project Bluebeam.
Well, I don't know. I guess in cases like these, like it's like, well, it's fun. I mean, it's fun.
Yeah, it's fun.
Because it's like, I'm like, well, what if it was true?
Yeah.
You know? Because it's like, damn, then what was it? You know what I mean? It stunk to high heaven.
Exactly, right.
because the pictures of it, because I didn't see, because they'll show clips in the video of them drawing it, and it looks kind of eerie. It looks how you would imagine a regular alien. You know how it's got the big head, big eyes. It just has red eyes, and it has like 3 horns. Interesting. Oh,
what the fuck?
Yeah, they said it was not horns, but like ridges, I guess. Like like. You know what I'm saying, right? Yeah. Like you can imagine that, right? Yeah. And that it had 3 fingers, like in the movies, like we come in peace. You know?
They're goofy.
Yeah. Oh, and that they didn't have any clothes, and that they were like 4 feet tall.
Oh wow.
So I don't know. Interesting stuff.
Interesting. I'm scared though.
You're scared, Julie?
I mean, I don't know. The way there's with this kind of stuff, I feel like there's rarely ever. It's 100% aliens, and then it's a bunch of whack jobs, you know. I don't know. I just thought it was interesting. I just thought it was a fun story.
What specifically is scaring you? Is it scaring you to think that it happened, or scaring you to think that the government hides things, or scary to think of the unknown?
I think it's just, to me, the scary part is like knowing that if you do see something, the government is gonna come for you and be like,
true,
and they're gonna threaten you or your life or whatever. I think that's what kind of gets me, where it's kind of like, then like, fuck, how is that my fault that like that shit just landed? Yeah,
that's a good point. That's a good point.
Wrong place, wrong time.
That's why I'm just like, to me, it's just, I think that's like
take the money. Well, bro.
It's also like the unknown, right? Of like what I saw, and like that will live with me kind of forever. Of like what I saw.
The guy who makes the documentary talks about that because it was coincidence. This part, the guy who I got most of the information from, he talks about the documentary in the video because that's where a lot of people got the information. And then there's a Joe Rogan clip about the same incident, but Joe Rogan's actually interviewing the guy who made the documentary. Oh, wow. And that was by chance. I didn't know that was the video.
Oh, wow.
So the guy in the documentary, he's talking about how like, oh my God, I'm so convinced. Like I never tell anybody to take my word for it. I'm like, just look at their video accounts. Like, look at the eyewitness accounts, and then you can tell me or whatever. He says that the one part that was haunting for him was he met up with the guy who drove around the car that had the alien, and he said that he felt like chills because he's like, damn, this guy saw an alien, and I'm staring at him in these eyes, and he's like, I can feel something's up with this guy. I feel like that ruined his life. That I'm looking into the eyes of a guy who saw an alien. Because that's probably an existential crisis.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, he could be a whack job. He could be like, you know, like Alex Jones or some shit.
Yeah, totally.
But,
if I was one of those people,
that's what I'm saying. Like, if I were one of those people, I'd for sure be scarred for life. And
I'd black it out.
Because I'd be like, I have no idea. Black out. Because I was like, I have no idea what I just saw.
Would you take the money? Like, if you're the woman who's like, well, let's say but
she's going through an existential crisis right now.
But same scenario. Let's say your kids are the one that saw it, and then it's the same thing. You go to the same spot, you smell the same shit, and you see the footprint, and you're like, I think your kids are shaking up, telling you they saw Satan himself, and you're like, okay, my kids probably saw something. But then a few days later, the men in black show up and tell you to get out of the country, take the money, and keep your mouth shut for the rest of your life. Do you take the money?
I don't know, because no money would ever cure me, bro, from what I saw.
I mean,
or what
I'm
I heard.
inclined to take the money because I'm like, if I don't, are you going to kill me? Like, you know,
totally.
Are you gonna kill me?
Totally.
Did they kill her, though?
No.
Okay.
Well, because like.
Yeah, but you don't know that when they ask you that.
Well, I guess maybe the explanation of the government cover-up is that they made her look like a whack job. You know what I mean? They're trying to paint her as a whack. Like, oh, come on, aliens. You know what I mean?
Well, either way, it's like it's kind of a lose-lose, no? But you get money, you know?
That's what I'm thinking.
You lose, but at least you're rich.
I'm like, well, I mean,
yeah, because then my daughters look like the whack job instead of me.
Yeah,
well, that was her reasoning. But I guess for me, I'm like, are you going to kill my kids? Like, you know, are you going to kill me and my kids if we don't? Because I'm like, I mean,
I would ask. I'd be like, if I say no, are you guys going to kill me?
Well, because then I'd be like, well, I feel like I'd rather look like a liar than be dead. So
I don't know, because I'd rather...
I'd rather die. You know what's crazy?
Because
I'd rather die than live with like whatever the shit that I saw. I'd be like, all right, just kill me then.
But you didn't see it though. You didn't see it though. Your kid saw it in this scenario. Well, they also gave the ages of the girls. I think it's 14, 16, and 20.
Damn.
They're kids. One of them was old, and I think in the account when I said one of them ran, the older girl grabbed the youngest girl and booked it out of there, but one of them like was, I guess, frozen because she was being talked to telepathically. You know,
she was like,
yeah. So it's like, I don't know.
As a mother, damn.
I feel like a part of me wants to be like, no, I wouldn't take the money, just because it's like the rebel spirit in me to be like, you know what, bro, fuck you, you know, like fuck it, like if you're gonna kill me, do it.
I guess in the scenario though, I feel like I'm trying to heavily contextualize it. So I'm like, okay, my kids saw aliens, the Men in Black showed up. I feel like if they're gonna kill me, it's not gonna be an easy death. I feel like they're gonna hit me with the suffer for eternity gun, you know, like it's
eternity gun,
you know, it's like I'm paralyzed and it feels like it feels like time is slowed down, so I die slowly and it feels like 1,000 years. I'll be like, maybe I'll just take the money.
They're gonna inject me with LSD and like watch me like foam at the mouth.
Well, because I guess the explanation that they give of like what the alien was, which was like, I'll show you off screen what, because I'm telling you, like, I can kind of see what they're getting at when they say like, I'll show them off screen just because I can't show you guys. But so I feel like I'd be like, just come on, just say you were scared. Maybe you were smoking a little reefer and you got scared, you know, and then we don't have to die.
I keep thinking of
Brenda's working for them.
Oh, am I?
Yeah, probably. I just keep thinking of the Zapata quote where it's like, I'd rather die on my feet than live on my knees.
That's true.
And
well, I mean, they also told him to get out of the country, so it's also like in
you
that
have
context,
to leave your home.
No, but in that context, it's like, I don't know, the people who I think I'm a liar, they're never gonna see me again. You know.
Yeah.
It's also a really small town, they say.
I guess in the moment, I'd probably take the money, but right now, since I am not experiencing it,
I guess
I'm like, fuck you.
for me, the context is not so much that they kill me; it's that they'd probably kill my kids because they're the ones that saw it. And I feel in that case, I'd probably have to make the executive decision of like, well, I don't want my kids to.
But that's what I mean. I don't have kids right now, so I'm like, fuck you.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah. I guess if it was just you and you saw it, I get it maybe. But if the context was my kids saw it and the government's basically saying take the money or we're gonna whack you guys, I don't know. That's always a good motivation in movies where they threaten the family. You know, that's why Batman wears a mask, right? Because to protect the people he loves or whatever.
But that's what I'm saying. Like that in itself, just talking about it gives me chills right now. Just because I think about that, there has to have been a scenario, not even aliens or anything spooky, but there had to be a scenario in the past where some guy was at the wrong place at the wrong time. Yeah. And the government was like, "Hey, bro, like either leave." Or like, you know,
we're gonna
kill you. And he's like, no, I'm not gonna leave. And then nobody ever heard about it. Wow. Nobody ever he went missing. Yeah. Nobody ever knew where he went. The government maybe covered it up so well, people thought he just skipped town.
Well, you know, it's the government, dude. I feel like they can kill you so creatively. They can make it look like you killed your family. They can make it look like anything. So I guess that's kind of the ominous part about it. I don't know. It
reminds me of those. There's this popular trend, and I feel like people listening, if you're on TikTok, you maybe see it. But it was this trend where it's like POV. You open the wrong door at Balenciaga, and it's the scene from Eyes Wide Shut, where it's like all these cult members. Stuff like that really gives me chills. Where it's like I genuinely think that there was times in human history, whether it was recently or 100 years ago, somebody saw something that they weren't meant to see. You could equate that to anything. Either they saw like.
I don't even think that's like a rare occurrence. I think that probably happens all the time.
Yeah, like, and then they just disappeared. You know, never heard from again. And I think that's what really gives me chills, is the fact that that's, like you said, that happens. Happens all the time. And I just wonder, who was the guy who saw the craziest shit? You know? Who was the guy that literally saw something that nobody ever saw again?
See, that's why I'm scared, bro.
I'm really spooking you.
My opinion on like what would freak me out. One of my favorite horror images of all time is the Thing, when they see the alien ship, but it's ancient. I think something about that gives me more chills than an alien now. Because I feel like, whoa, they were here and they were Like, we're advanced now, but they were here millions of years ago, and they're still millions of years ahead of us. That to me gives me a little bit of chills. That's why I love the thing, because
it is a good movie. I recommend everybody watch it. The 80s one.
I love that like little piece of lore, but I digress. Just a little, just a little thing.
Yeah, but I guess moving on for our final topics, we'll move it on to you, Julie. Mm-hmm. So what do you got for us this week?
I got just a couple things, I guess, that are happening. So recently, I mean, the most recent thing that I guess I can talk about is one of my cats died, Puffy.
R.I.P. the goat.
Yeah, rip to him. I think he was 16.
Yeah,
we found him in like 2007.
That's an old cat.
Mm-hmm. So I basically have had him since I was 10 or 11. And I mean, I've kind of been like going through it a little bit. Cause I guess like when I come home, I feel lonely. Or like, I feel like I'll see him. Cause it's a habit, you know, like you've lived with him for like, 16 years. And, he was also kind of like my comfort cat. Like when I felt sad or like when I was going through stuff, like I always had him there. I feel like I remember when I think like my tia Angelica passed away, and like that was really like hard for me. And I had him there. But I think today I mostly want to talk about it because I feel like it's nice to talk about it. Because I feel like it's helped me at least a lot to like grieve with it. But yeah, it's been a hard couple of days. I think he passed away Saturday. So we found him Saturday night, and then we buried him like Sunday morning on like Mother's Day. So I've been like kind of just going through like those emotions or whatever, and like going to work. Work has helped because like it'll distract me a little bit. But for the most part, like, I tried to, like, kind of look up how to help me with, like, the whole grieving thing. And it does say, like, you should, like, talk about it and, like, kind of just remember him in, like, different ways of, like, whatever. And, like, what was the other thing of just, like, letting yourself feel the emotions, right?
Yeah.
And because I feel like for a bit, I was trying not to because I'm like, I don't want to get emotional about it. Like it's a pet or whatever. And then my boyfriend was just like, well, he was a part of the family. Like you've had him for like so many years and like all that. So sometimes when I see cats, I do get sad.
Yeah.
Or like when I see the kitty, like I get a little sad because I'm like, it's just her now.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I feel like in a way, this is also for me to kind of like let him go. I mean, I have been, and like I had been grieving him since like March because I already knew that he was old, like he was really really old, and like I already knew that like his time was gonna come at some point. And what's funny, or not funny, but like what's interesting is that like the time when we took shrooms, and remember he was like on the table.
Yeah. When
I was petting him, I generally was like, bro, if you want to go, like go, like I don't want you to like keep suffering, and like if you're feeling pain, like if you want to go, like we'll be okay, like because I feel like in a way I think he kind of saw that, or I don't know, I like to think that he kind of felt that in a way, and so like that's why I was like I want him to go peacefully. And what's also, I guess, interesting to me is that I imagine him. There's a picture that I took of him, and I'll probably send it to you if you want to post it or whatever. But there's a picture of him that I have that he's like sitting on top of the couch, and he's just like stretched out like that. And I just imagine him that like his last probably like thought, because he was always like outside. The last few days that like he was still, you know, here. Was that like I imagine him like sitting up straight, and like he kind of has like either a cape or like kind of like a poncho or some shit like that. And like he also has like, I also thought of like kind of like the animes when the wind is like blowing on them and it's like a serious moment. That's how I think of him, but I think of him of like being like at peace, like and I feel like that memory like makes me happy, but it also makes me really sad. I just really hope that, like, I don't know, that at the end of it, like, that he was fine, you know? And, like, it has really affected me a lot, but, I'm trying to move on from it. And I know that there's, like, other people who have, I guess, there's same experiences with, like, a pet or, like, a loved one. So,
yeah,
I just,
when I just wanted to say, because obviously, like, he was my cat too, right?
Yeah.
I feel like one thing that people who've never had a pet don't realize is that when your pet dies, it really is like a member of the family dies. And so, like, I feel that pain, and like, I hope you feel as though you're valid in everything that you feel, because I get that you can maybe think, oh, why am I being so extra over just like a pet dying? But I'm telling you, it really does feel like a member of our family died. We had him since we were fucking kids, bro. There's a picture of me literally as a little ass kid. I was, he was 16. I was 8 years old when we got him. I'm 24 now, you know?
Yeah.
Like, how insane is that? He saw me go through puberty.
Yeah.
You know, he was with me through everything. And in the last few days, yeah, maybe he looked old and he was frizzled, but he went out peacefully. Yeah. You know, he went out on his own terms. There was no suffering. He luckily didn't, like, go outside and get ripped apart by a coyote, you know? He went gracefully and he went peacefully into the afterlife. And I think for me, I feel like I kind of thought about it as more of like, he's relaxed. As an old cat, I feel like he could never relax. He always had something wrong with him because he was old. Like, for those of you watching, he was really old. His feet would bleed. He would constantly, like, be starving. He wouldn't know where he was. I remember the last few days he couldn't even get up to jump onto this chair that, like, before for any cat is super easy to do. And for me, I felt like when he passed, all those things that he could do in his youth met up with him again. And I'm somebody who likes to believe that there is an afterlife, and I feel like in whatever it is, he's doing better there than what he was doing right now. And I don't know if that helps you, Julie, but like, that's at least to me what helps me when I think about him, because I've had a dream about him literally every single night since he passed away. I've had a dream. I took a nap today. I had a dream about him even then. You know, like, he was a good cat. He was a good cat. You know?
Yeah.
He was a good cat.
And I mean, I guess since I think we've talked about it on here that, like, we've had a lot of pets before.
Yeah.
So when, like, every time I guess one of our pets passes, I think of all of our past pets. So his death also reminds me of, like, our other pets. But it also does make me, like, I guess, a little happy to know that he's with our other pets in a way. And I always am, like, in the end, I'm always hopeful that they're all fine. And, like, I think I also see them as, like, being in their youthfulness and, like, in their full strength when they're gone. Like, I don't see him as, like, the old cat that we had him as. Yeah. Like how I said, like, the picture of him is, like,
you see him in his prime.
Yeah. Like,
totally.
That's how I kind of like to imagine him. And, like, yeah, so I guess in a way, this is just me kind of going through that grief, and I'm hoping that, like, because I do feel sometimes, I guess, not mad, but in a way I'm kind of like, man, like, I don't want to feel sad anymore. Like, I don't want to feel hurt anymore. But I'm also understanding that I'm just going through the emotions of, like, losing him and all that. But I know that, like, I'll be okay and I'll be fine. And, like, how I said, like, I already knew that it was going to happen, and I had already been, like, preparing myself. But I guess now that it's happening, it's kind of, like, a little harder, I guess, to kind of, like, move on from it. Yeah. But I know that, like, I'll be fine. Yeah. And, like, how, like, usually my parents tell me it's kind of, like, life kind of goes on and you kind of have to move on from it. But I don't think I'm not, like, invalidating myself of the emotions. And it's cool because, like, I guess when I kind of tell my friends, they're very, like, supportive on it. No one's, like, weirded out about it, or, like, no one's like, yeah, like, it's just a cat. Everyone's like, okay, like, they're very understanding of it. which is nice to see, because I think that was my point where I was being more critical about myself of like, it's just like, it's a cat. But I think hearing that like everyone kind of validates my emotions about it is also helpful for me.
And so I'm proud of you, bro. I'm proud of you, because I feel like it takes a lot to talk about these things. I mean, like, you know, we talk about death a lot in our family. You know, we've seen a lot of death in our life, and I feel like you openly communicating that to right now is like something that I feel like helps me also kind of move on from it. So I'm proud of you, because you were the one who initiated that, and it takes a lot of strength to show emotionally how you feel. And so I just wanted to let you know, because I also think that could resonate a lot with anybody who listens, because it means a lot, bro. A pet passing isn't just no fucking joke, you know?
Yeah.
It hits a lot of people's core. And I'm proud that you're like not afraid to show that.
He was 16?
Yeah.
Damn. It's an old cat. He was the only old cat I think I ever saw. My first cat did get ripped apart by a coyote. So,
I'm sorry, I don't mean to laugh.
No, I mean it's a little funny. No, it's not. The situation isn't funny, but I don't know. I can laugh about it.
I guess, yeah, coping, right?
Yeah, my first cat, his name was Felix, ripped apart by a coyote when I was a little kid. So I guess in my neighborhood, cats don't get old. Then I got two other cats. One of them got ripped apart by a coyote, but we saved her and we nursed her back to health. But then she disappeared. And then the other cat, the orange cat, you remember that one?
Yeah.
We don't know what happened to her. She just disappeared. I think, the canon I want to believe is I think she just got old and went somewhere to die. I don't know if that's what happened, but you know.
Yeah.
But I think it's cool that Puffy got old. You know what I mean? I don't know. I genuinely think old cats are kind of a rarity. Because, like, what's that thing about a cat's lifespan outside versus inside is drastically different. And so I think that's cool. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And he was a stray kitten.
Yeah. I know. We found them basically, like, in the back of an IHOP.
No, you guys found him in a gutter, and then he got to live 16 years? I'd take that deal.
And we took him everywhere.
Yeah.
We took him everywhere.
He went to Mexico.
He did?
Yeah.
Yeah. He went to Mexico.
He went to Mexico. Cat.
And he explored around Mexico.
How old is 16 in human years for a cat?
I have no idea.
99.
He was probably in his 90s.
Bro, he was like Puss in Boots. He was on his 9th life, bro.
No, yeah, and he, honestly, like, that cat had seen some shit. Yeah, that cat had seen some shit.
He went through a lot.
Yeah, he was tough, bro. He went out tough. He went out with honor.
84.
84. Yeah,
that's a long life. A lot of people don't even make it to 84.
Yeah.
I don't know. I like the interpretation that cats are spiritual beings. I like when somebody mentioned that cats purring is turning bad energy into good energy. That's cool. I don't know if you've ever seen those pictures of all the cats that hang out in Egypt. There's something cool but also eerie about that because they like worship cats, right? So I don't know. Maybe he figured it was all the energy is cleaned. So
maybe
I like that.
Yeah,
his job was done.
And we
job's
finished.
We still have
the kitty.
Yeah, we still have our other cat, so
yeah,
we gotta make sure she's all right.
But yeah, and then I mean, just to I guess mention my other like topic. I'm going to EDC, so I'm also using that time to kind of in a way distract me from everything. I think it's gonna be like a really nice stress reliever and like just to get me, because I've been working like these past few days like nonstop, and then this shit happened, and then and I feel like I haven't had a moment for myself and like to hang out with friends and stuff. So I'm really gonna use this a lot for sure.
That's good.
And I feel like I've been learning, because I was gonna like go into more about like EDM and the culture of it. But I think I just want to leave it at like I'm gonna be at EC, so if y'all see me there or say hi. I know this is coming out next week, but
probably after it's done.
But yeah, I feel like I'm super excited about it. This is my second time going, so I've learned from my first experience of what I am and what I'm not gonna do. Because remember, I don't know if you remember, but last year I was fucking like I was recovering for a whole week. Like I was sick in my room.
Oh yeah.
I was like, I legit put my body through so much because I was basically on a bender for like 5 days straight.
You gonna top that?
No.
You got to, bro. You got to.
I'm not. I'm too old for this, bro.
Puffy would want this.
Bruh.
He would. That's what he wanted. That's what he would have wanted.
No.
In his honor, pour one out.
I don't know. I don't know. Maybe.
I mean, the pictures I seen of EDC looks cool.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll go next year.
Yeah.
It's
We'll all
pretty
go.
cool.
It'll be a Todo Chido special broadcast.
Instead of going to Coachella, we go to EDC.
Oh shit! I forgot about Coachella.
Wow.
It depends on who headlines Coachella next year. If it's like Kendrick, I'm sorry.
Kendrick.
EDC's got Boobo Bebop.
Bebop.
You know?
They got Daft Punk. What if Daft Punk comes back for EDC? Would they do that? I mean,
Maybe.
Like, I mean, not saying would they come back, but like if Daft Punk was still together, would they be at EDC hypothetically?
Probably.
I'd go for
Yeah.
that.
Wow, yeah, I would.
There
Actually,
is on the lineup. It says special guest. It's like a question mark. You don't know who it is, but it says like special guest.
Deadmau5?
So I don't know who it could be.
Daft Punk.
Daft Punk.
That'd be
if
crazy.
it's them,
That'd be
remember
crazy.
this.
We
This
call-
came out. We predicted it right now.
This came out. When is EDC? Tomorrow.
Friday.
This came out. Well, it
17th.
won't come out before, but
Yeah.
this is filmed.
This is proof. This is
Yeah.
proof.
This is proof.
Yeah, this really is
We
proof.
Get a
predicted?
newspaper. We'll show today's newspaper.
Bruh. Show your phone.
Show
Show the phone
date.
screen.
Oh, show it. I don't got my phone on
Yeah,
me.
I'll show it. I'll show.
Go ahead.
I'll show the phone screen.
Let everybody know.
What if it's not?
What if, like,
if it's
I
not Daft Punk?
know. What if like fucking Hail Mary? There's no way it's gonna be Daft Punk.
So I don't know. Is my phone on the screen?
Yeah.
Okay.
They'll see that. They can see
All
that.
right. So it says Wednesday, May 17th.
Oh, one of the
It died.
cameras. Yeah.
Was it me?
Yeah, it was you. Should we just wrap it up?
Yeah.
Well, I think that was a pretty good episode. We had a little bit of everything. We had aliens. We had Cholos. We had cats.
Some emotional moments.
We had everything. So I hope you enjoyed that episode. Sorry for all the camera cutouts. Sorry.
Technical difficulties that we'll fix in the future.
So sorry you won't be able to see Julie on the goodbye, but we promise she's saying goodbye and she's smiling.
Y'all can hear me.
So we'll see you guys next week. Bye.
Bye.